Ladies and gentlemen, it is Thursday, and welcome to another glorious early edition morning of Ask That. And today I am joined by Sean Davis, and we're going to have a very interesting conversation about culture and self-reflection and solving problems. And with that, Sean Davis, welcome to our little place on the internet. How are you?
Thanks. I'm doing pretty good. I appreciate you having me on. And
Absolutely.
it's a great day. It's cold, but it's great.
Cold. You're in like Atlanta. It's not cold.
You would think that, right?
Yeah. No, you don't get to talk about cold. You can come up here. So before we kind of dive into our conversation today, why don't you do a quick introduction of who you are and everything you got going on?
Sure. So I'm Sean Davis. I work for a company called Agile Thought. We're focused really around transformations of business, generally in the Agile and DevOps spaces. But we also do a lot of custom software development because at the heart, that's what our company is. But we found that, there are a lot of complementary offerings that help bring that picture together for businesses. My specific role is to focus on business transformation around the DevOps space and how to bring everyone in to have a seat at the table, so to speak.
All right, and so what brings us here today is we got rapping one day on Slack about abstracts and talking all that, and I said I just want to stop. I want to stop our conversation and start recording it, and then we immediately just 5 minutes ago dived back into the deets, and I was like, no, we're gonna stop and we're gonna record this. So let's just you're super passionate about changing business, changing that culture. And just a few moments ago, you were talking about how you had this revelation. And I just want to kind of go back to that. And I know that's you repeating yourself a bit, but I think a lot of people fall into that story. So talk about that for a moment and let's back into things.
Oh, definitely. So, I have conversations daily with my wife about, we just have check-ins with each other about what's going on and where we're going. And, I'm starting to do a lot more with my life around speaking and putting myself out there. And, my wife has told me for years, hey, you've got this story that I think a lot of people want to hear and that you should share. So I really started looking back and saying, what drives me? What motivates me to do what it is that I want to do, and why am I doing it? And I found that there were a lot of parallels with peers in my industry. Obviously, being in the IT industry, the average is 50 to 60-hour work weeks. Yep. You never feel like you're growing anywhere, and it's a very political race with a lot of places, and there's a lot of challenges. And what I've learned kind of going up through the ranks to getting to a point where I can sit in a boardroom and talk to board members and I could talk to stakeholders of business in the C-suite was the perceptions at an individual contributor level in the organization they greatly vary from what a business may find as value from people. Mm-hmm. Yep. So I've made it my mission now to really focus on that area using technology as an enabler. So saying, hey, all of my peers that are in this community, I've lived your life. I've done these things, and I've come out on the other side with an opportunity to bring back information that if I would have had 10, 15 years ago, my career could have possibly been much further than what it was. And one of the things that I found talking to my wife, she says, no matter what you do, you keep falling back into these 50-hour, 60-hour work weeks when you do technical work. Why do you think that moving over to this more coaching role and working with executives and aligning their businesses and transforming them, why do you think that you're not going to be working 50, 60 hours with that? And I said, well, so when I look back, I realized the reason why I work so hard, I tried to get every certification under the sun. I tried to do a lot of technical learning and build a good GitHub, all of the things that most traditional IT guys are trying to do. One, to build credibility, two, to have some breadth of information and knowledge about the things you work in. Was I found at the core of who I was, it was just I wanted to help people. I looked at all of my peers and heard their struggles and, their complaints about how the work was disorganized and their boss didn't care and it just felt like the same grind every day. And after being in 10 different jobs and the story was always the same, I realized I'm that guy that's working at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. I'm the go-to guy because I wanted to be the person that had to take the brunt of that force so my peers could go home and spend time with their family and, at least get to live their life and get back a little of their sanity. And then I've realized coming through that and working over the last year with Agile Thought and a lot of these businesses that aligning at a transformation level and being able to impact the organization at a higher level has given me the opportunity, one, to give insight to peers at an individual contributor level, as well as, hey guys, you don't have to kill yourself working 50 and 60 hours a week. Here is what will make your life better, right? And one of the first things I tell my guys is go home. Yep. At the end of the day, the work is going to be there tomorrow, and I know that's super hard to hear because everything always feels like it has a sense of urgency, but at the end of the day, the business doesn't care about the individual task that you're contributing to. They have a vision, and how you contribute to that vision is what makes your role important with an organization. And I think we get caught up sometimes, and I have a few talks about it where we go through things like the IKEA effect, which is you carry a lot of value in the things that you've done, the things that you've built, and you have that pride and that self-worth, and you see more value in it than others may because they didn't have a part in this. This was you that contributed your time and effort, right?
Yep.
All the way over to things like the mirror effect. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but basically it's the fact that you have something that somebody else doesn't have brings value to what you have. So you have a lot of these guys that become the heroes in the organization, the go-to guys, the really smart guys, and you have kind of employees who just want to come and do their job and go home, and either they get it or they just understand they can't break the wheel.
Sure.
And then you have, I wouldn't always say that they're high performers because high performers vary within the organization of how they approach the problems, but you have the guys that will run against a brick wall 100 times and try to figure out how can I get through this problem, how can I solve it, and try 100 different ways until they finally figure it out. But that comes at a cost of time and experience in order to gain that knowledge, right? Yeah. So I'd like to find a way to try to lend that experience to other people to say, hey, while you feel these things are really challenging, here are just a few simple things that you can do that cost you nothing, no time, no effort or anything else that can change your life.
So there's a ton there to unpack. And I know that's what led us to this today, because I want to share this whole line of thinking. So let's start with what are the simple things that people can change, because I completely agree. There is no need to work a 60-hour week. You're not going to somehow get faster. You're not going to somehow get better. In fact, you're just going to get worse. Nobody wants to hear that, but that's the reality. So what are your simple things? And then let's kind of go back to the culture side, because, all executives are the devil. So.
Exactly. So they range from very little effort to a lot of effort, and some require more discipline than others. The first thing I always tell everyone is, one, don't be a hero. It goes against a lot of methodologies that are in the industry. It's proven that when you work beyond 14 hours a day, you become drastically less effective at your job. Anything past 11 and a half hours, you're already starting to see diminishing returns. Yep. So there's no reason in killing yourself. It doesn't benefit the business because you're going to burn yourself out, and they're going to lose talent they've invested in. Yep. And then you're going to have a sour taste in your mouth about that, and that's going to breach out to all of the other contacts and the relationships that you have. The second is really just go home at the end of the day. We have a work day that's usually structured, and most people come in around a certain time and most people leave during a certain time, because that's the hours of a business being effective, right? If you're still there at 7 o'clock and 6 of the stakeholders you need to accomplish something are getting done, it doesn't matter whether you finish the work. You're not going to be able to vet it out. You're not going to be able to test it. You're not going to be able to deploy it or ensure that it functions properly. You're not getting peer review. And the more people do that, I think they don't realize they're isolating themselves from everyone else, and then it gives them a bad look out of the business and how they're going to approach things, and it ends up demoralizing them.
Sure.
They share that with their peers and that frustration, and some people don't know how to handle that or may not be mature enough in their career or understanding of the long term. And you start demoralizing the rest of your team unintentionally until eventually, you've got an entire toxic relationship with every person that you're coming in contact with because of your unhappiness. More importantly, I would say learn that what you do at your job doesn't define who you are, right? While you can be the best developer in the entire world for Agile Thought or for any other company that's out there, it doesn't define who you are. Take some time outside of work to set some goals where you want to be in life and what you want to do independent of another person, another human being, or another business, right? What do you want to accomplish in this world? Define some core principles that at the end of the day, when you ask yourself, it's always your default mode, and decide if that's something that you love about yourself and you want to perpetuate, or something that you want to change and evolve within your life, right? So that everything that you do and your self-worth isn't tied to what you do as a job.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
I know that's a lot. I don't want to overwhelm you.
No. Let's start with the hours thing. I mean, we've all been on the project where we hear we got to run up the hill or the death march or this or that. I have learned over my career that it's okay to just say no and not do it. And I think that's hard to hear.
Yes,
it's hard to be received when one says that. It can sometimes feel like you're not a team player. But to your other point of like being productive and what your real value is back to the company is the important part. And, we as developers or technicians or whatever, doesn't, insert role job there. Your job is to solve a problem, provide a service, right? It's not necessarily
right.
to create the next big widget. And so being aligned to those things and using yourself as the quality gate to one's requirements, just because somebody says go build a thing, is it really the thing that should be built?
Yes.
Like, you are a professional in this. Bring that piece rather than the next kind of, great function that's in the chain of other functions.
I would agree. I think you touched on a couple of important things there too. That's another really good piece of advice that I give people a lot is just say no. It does feel very counterproductive, but if we talk about perspectives for a moment, right? Let's just say from an individual contributor's perspective versus a leadership's perspective. Sure. An individual contributor wants to do everything they can do, to please the business and to be the best and to, work their way up to the top of that corporate ladder or that chain.
Yep.
From leadership's perspective, people who can't say no don't know how to manage their time properly. Yep. They don't know how to set a proper expectation. And those are two of the most important things in business that you can do before you do anything, right? Yeah. So, like I said, it doesn't matter how great of a developer you are. If you promise the world and you only have 2 weeks to deliver it, you're not delivering the world, and the expectation that's been set is always going to let the customer down. It's better to under-promise and over-deliver than the other way around.
Yeah, and that's one of those sticky things too. You are set to meet deadlines and expectations, whether you're a public company or a private company, your executive team or C-levels, whatever, the leadership team, if you will, is trying to plan a business multi-quarter, multi-year. And so if it's always yes, and you're essentially just saying what you think wants to be heard, then other people are taking that information and betting the farm on it.
Yes.
And yet that's a problem as well. I often give an example of the person who's got the calendar, who's got booked 4 wide all the way down, and you go, you've already disappointed 3 groups of stakeholders who think that you're going to be at your thing because you couldn't hit decline. Like you're not going to physically be in both places, and yet
Agreed.
You've accepted this, and down the path you think that your value is somehow running between meeting to meeting, when really your value is delivering what you were asked, not to just be in a group of meetings. Not that meetings aren't important, but 4 wide, 12 long, that's not the value in itself at all.
Agreed. And I think that's a good point as well is, going back to the time management, I hear it a lot from leadership where they talk about people overcommit themselves, and then when they don't show up for all of these meetings that they're in, nothing is ever really getting accomplished. At the end of the day, you should ask yourself in every activity that you do, at least when you're at work, and it would be a good thing to follow even when you're not at work, is what am I bringing value to by doing this? right? Setting in a meeting for the sake of setting in a meeting. If you're not helping somebody, you're not gathering a requirement, you're not delivering some sort of value to the line of business that you're working for, you're not doing anyone justice by being there. You need to bow out. You need to hit that decline button, and then even send them a follow-up email that says, this is the reason I can't attend.
That's right.
You know, I have another high value meeting that I need to go to, and out of the 4, this one wasn't the highest, unfortunately, you know. So if this continually happens, there's a problem to solve, right? Life is all about opportunities in everything that you do, and finding those, you're going to get a lot more receptive behavior out of other people, because you know, going into kind of segueing into the culture part, that's what I love about my job so much, is I see a lot of these mistakes and a lot of these common mistakes. And what brings me more joy than anything is sitting down with that person and saying, hey, the things I'm going to tell you are going to sound radical. They're going to sound counterproductive to what you're trying to do. But if you just trusted me, I assure you, you're not going to be fired. I'm in control here. You know, I have buy-in from the business, which is critical, right? Is having buy-in and not just Supermaning it over here and not talking to somebody. Just work with me, right? And then hearing the stories 6 months after a transformation has happened about how their life is different. I don't know if you've read the book, The Phoenix Project.
Oh, yeah. I haven't read it, but I know what you're talking about.
Probably one of the most amazing books that's ever been written. It's deeply technical about the inner workings of what DevOps is and the value it brings to a business, without hardly ever talking about technical aspects of the business. It's a book that literally every organization I've gone into and I've said, hey, before we do anything, I want you to read this book. I want you to understand what's about to happen in your organization. They come back and they're like, this Gene guy must have been sitting in the back room of my business listening to all these things happening and wrote a book about my business. And I think that speaks to the power of the book, of the lesson that he's delivering, when so many people can relate. And hearing those stories of everyone afterwards, man, I mean, it's so refreshing to go in somewhere and see somebody that's, you know, on the brink of just burnout and they hate their job and they hate their life, and then watching, you know, what DevOps and Agile can do for a business, because we touch everything from culture all the way down to collaboration and everything in between, with automation and measurement and, you know, lean processes. And then seeing how different their life is afterwards. And they're like, you know, the last week I took a vacation. Right? I haven't been able to take a vacation in years because I'm the guy that needs everything. And now no one depends on me for every single thing. And if something breaks, it's always my fault. Right? You know, that goes away and you see a different person underneath. And I think that's the true success of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, how are you getting involved with these executives? Like, has the company hit a point where like the rails have just fallen off and they're like spiraling towards disaster? Are they like mindful of their culture underneath that says, look, I know things aren't quite going well? Because I feel like there's at times there's just this contention between the development teams and the executives, and, you know, we don't necessarily, you know, one's sitting there in his Ferrari getting rich, and, you know, us common men are working 60 hours a week. Like, where is it that you find yourself getting involved with them? And like, what is that? Like, what do those initial meetings look like?
So it ranges. Some clients are having challenges around being able to deliver quality software in a realistic, you know, cadence.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, some people want to just deliver faster. A lot of companies realize that to maintain competitiveness in this market, you know, this new emerging Agile and DevOps thing people have been talking about that seems like it's just emerging, has been around for several years, right? Yeah. And, you know, some of them just don't know. We all hear buzzwords every single day of our lives, and we hear DevOps, but I've yet to be in a meeting initially with any company or any customer that hasn't asked me, what is DevOps? You know, they lean in and they're like, I hear about it all the time and I've read about it, but I still don't know what it is, you know? And I'm like, it's really 3 things. It's people, process, and tools. And it's a coalesce of those together, really, for the DevOps side of the house. And it's hard to wrap up, I guess, what you're asking for into one single package, because it really varies. I've seen some customers that are like, you need to save us. right? And we throw an entire team of developers in there and say, hey, this is what it would look like if your transformation was completed, right? So it kind of gives you a glimpse into the future. And then we've had other customers that are like, hey, we just want to know what this agile thing is, what this DevOps thing is, or we want to position ourselves to be competitive in the market. Tell us a little bit about this and how this is going to help our business deliver.
Sure.
And I'm really big on the cultural part, right?
Yep.
Because without the cultural part, the rest of it won't matter, right? You can put all the processes in the world in your business and you can build the most efficient pipeline in the world to deliver software. But if your people don't believe in the process and they don't believe in the tools, they don't practice the methodologies around it, and they don't do it with the rigor that they need to, it'll never truly be successful and be adopted in the business. And it gives us a unique opportunity to say, what is it that you want? What kind of culture do you want? Let's step back from the HR paperwork. Let's step back from the cool flyers and all of the PR that we see that lures us into the business. And let's talk about what your people really are. And not only that, but instead of looking at hiring outside people all of the time or just cycling people through the business, let's enrich that. Let's build a continuous improvement cycle that once we work this system, we actually take people that have been pigeonholed into a specific job, and we can give them opportunities to learn new things, to chase after the things they want to do and become something new or different, right? I think that's probably the most compelling part.
You've mentioned the business here a few times. Like, I think a lot of people out there don't necessarily get to interact with the business, right? They maybe talk to a BA or whatnot, but their notion of the business is kind of like people over there, like they're in another building. Like, how do we dive into that for a moment? I mean, how do you get business buy-in into development, and how do we bring these groups together?
So what I'm going to tell you is probably going to frustrate a lot of people, but it's the most important first step that you can take. If you can articulate to me clearly what your business vision is, what your role in achieving that vision is, and what your contributions are, and line it with the vision, you need to stop whatever you're doing, right? Because at the end of the day, your job is not about fulfilling tasks. It's about finding a way to bring value to the team that you work for and the organization that you work for. And it really starts with you evaluating more than just, I know C# and I'm the best C# developer in the world. But you know what? The customer of company A doesn't care about code quality. What they care about is application B, which they want to be able to click for, let's say, ordering a hotel. They don't care how the cookies are made. They just want to know who's going to give me the best price when I want to order a hotel, or, who's going to give me the best bed, and the best quality that matches what I want, right? So you really have to drive the skill and play secondary to that and focus more on how I deliver value to the business. Number one thing, communication, right? So many of us get stuck behind a screen, and developers are the hardest that argue that every day with me is my job is to finish these things, and even before sprints happen, right? I've got a laundry list of tickets in Jira, or, I have all of these things that I have to do and all these bugs I have to fix. I have this great idea for an application, but I can't get anybody to buy in. And I say, well, have you talked to any peers about it? Some of them will say, yeah, I've talked to them and they think it's great too. And I'm like, okay, well, have we taken it the next step up the ladder? Have you talked to your manager about how this could align with a business need, right? What need are you servicing? What problem are you fixing or solving, right? Is this the new and shiny because you think it would be cool? Or if I ask you tomorrow, if you need $1 million to build this, can you write me a business case on why? Right? Look at it from the business's perspective, right? You have a talent that they want. How do you make that talent work for them? And don't think about the tasks or the summation of those tasks. Think about the value that you're going to deliver and how you can present that, working your way up the chain, right? Because if you don't get your manager's buy-in, you're not going to get his director's buy-in. You're not going to get his VP's buy-in, and you're not going to get the C-suite's buy-in, right? So it starts at the bottom. And, I think there's an element of people need to be able to present themselves too, right? A lot of times technical guys get stuck in, I only talk to technical guys every day, right? Take some time out, talk to your manager and say, hey, 2 hours a week, spread that off for 30 minutes a day, right? I want to go connect with someone else in another part of the business that relies on our team, right? Understand what your value to them is, understand how you communicate with them, and build a rapport with them, right? The business will notice that you're taking the initiative to grow outside of a task and a role. Yeah. And that's really, as I know if you've been on the other side of things, you see as you rise through the ranks, doing something individually becomes less important. Motivating people as a group brings more value than even working 200% capacity. Sure. And once you reach that VP or that C-suite level, they expect you to be able to function in a lot of different areas of the business. So it's no longer about your individual intelligence and development, right? I meet guys all the time that come from finance that have served their time in the IT, global IT departments and stuff, so they can understand how that part of the business works. So I think those are valuable things to think on your journey. It's not a fully comprehensive list, but it should get you started in the right direction. Yeah.
Let's kind of shift a bit. So you work with companies to transform, it's a kind of a marketing buzzword, but what does a successful change look like? You go through all this, you worked with them for a while. Like, what does success look on the other side? How is it different?
A lot of the businesses will define the specifics of it, but at the end of the day, the goal is to deliver better quality software at a more predictable, fast rate. And for the business to be able to learn from the process, right? It's all about the continuous delivery and the continuous improvement of the process that we're working on. What you should see is better utilization of your staff. You should see faster deliverables, more stable releases, and better quality software overall.
Sure. But so, not to cut you off, but that starts to sound like a very development-centric problem that we're solving. And I know that that's not in fact the case, right? I know it's not like, we just made a development team more productive, so there we were moving faster. There's really a more holistic side of this that everybody plays into doing that, not just, hey, our developers got more builds done today.
Agreed. If we blow up to the 50,000-foot view and we look at something beyond DevOps and we take a look at how Agile transforms the organization, right? It really connects the business and the processes to the development and the operations of the organization, right? What we want to do at the end of the day is to raise the visibility of the work that's flowing through the business, remove any impediments, and allow delivery of the desires of the business, i.e. features for those products, much quicker, as well as bridge the gap between all of the silos and break them down within the organization so that we can encourage more collaboration and more efficient use of everyone's time.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't want to sound like marketing or whatever, but that's really the ultimate goal.
And I think we need to be honest about that, because it is not just a development team, right? It is not just throw more people on the problem. All too often I hear can we just put somebody else on that? And you're like, I'm in the same file. Adding another person in there is not going to do us a bit of good whatsoever. So let's stop asking that question and let's focus on a bigger thing. And so you have the business who's responsible for the things that they do and their vision and where they're going. They need to be able to clearly articulate a set of requirements. You have the executives that need to be able to articulate their revenue goals and their commitments to the street or their customers. And you have development who needs to be able to do this stuff, and operations who needs to come together and support. It is everybody in that, not just throw a few more people on the fire and let's just hope to God we get that function out faster. Because I'd argue, and since you're in Atlanta and you have a fantastic racetrack down there, there is a saying in racing that slower is faster. You can't go through the corners at the same speed that you go down the straightaway, and thus you need to learn how to drive the racetrack and everybody who's around it. And so fast doesn't necessarily always mean more faster to achieve fastness.
I agree. I think it really comes down to, like you mentioned before, aligning the business's goals to the delivery of those goals, right? Because there's always, what I see, even in this industry, within my own subculture of Agile and DevOps, what I see a lot of times in an organization is you have these Agilists that come in and they're trying to transform the organization. And then you have these DevOps guys that are coming in, right? And these dudes are talking some heavy technical stuff, and these guys are talking really process, right? And what happens is they're on their own individual initiatives and they never talk. One of the things, I'm going to do a shameless plug here for a moment. One of the things that I love about our company is we came up with a concept of what that Agile and DevOps being married together and what the 2.0 version of that would be for the market based on research over the last few years. And what we found is, using your car analogy, think of it like a car, right? We attack things from 4 different directions. If you imagine an exploded view of a car, let's start with the windshield, right? We have a front windshield, a rear windshield, side view, and rear view mirrors, right? So what we call this is leadership coaching. And we focus around helping leadership ensure that the right things are in the mirrors, that we're watching our competitors, that we're maintaining a competitive edge in the market, but we're also lending a lot of hindsight to other experiences with other customers we've had and where there were successes and where there were failures and what we could learn and how that applies to them. Next, we move on to the engine of the car, right? This is the product, right? So we do a lot of product coaching for the businesses to say, hey, this is how to grow and nurture your product, how to supercharge it, how to turbocharge it, make it go faster. Then we have the chassis of the car, right? That's where Agile really comes in, and we do Agile coaching, and we talk about, here's the framework in which you operate in, right? It's not you look at Agile Manifesto, it's not a set of hard and fast rules. The only thing that is really set in stone are the roles of Scrum, right? Is knowing what each of your roles are and performing those. But everything else is really a framework for us to be able to say, well, the business may lean to one side or the other, but as long as they embrace the values of Agile, we're moving in the right direction. And then finally, think about the drivetrain and the wheels, and that's DevOps, right? Now that we've got this car built and we're using all of these other pieces, DevOps is what delivers it, right? DevOps is what gets you there, right? Each of them are separate but equal complementary opportunities within the business that allow everything from a C-suite to be able to connect with an individual contributor to deliver that end-to-end vision of the product, right? So that's what we're really about, and that's what I think at the end of the day, when you talk about delivery, that's what businesses want to see is, how can I ask for something, a realistic expectation be set, and deliver something quality on the other side that doesn't break the bank or break our staff, right?
Yep. I agree. So we are coming at the end of our time, and with every show, I extend a piece of gratitude towards my guest or, partner in crime for the this little episode. And with that, I want to say thank you to you for your sharing and the things that you've done. I think it's important when we have those like revelations of like, hey, I'm really passionate about a thing and I really want to go share that with others. I really want to see people spend more time with their families. I want to see people work less and be more productive. And so I just thank you for kind of taking that charge and trying to get that good word out to everybody, because at the end of the day, we only have so many hours in life and we need to enjoy it, and we spend a lot of time working, and it shouldn't be painful. You should enjoy it, because that's when you'll do your best work, and everybody wins when everybody's doing what they love. So thank you for being on, and thank you for taking that charge in our little section of the world, which leaves me to my last question. What would be your tip of the day for anybody who finds themselves somehow intrigued by our conversation? What would be your parting words to them?
So I tell everybody the most important thing that I live by, and I think it's a good mantra to follow, is it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. That's where the learning happens, right? That's where the fulfillment happens, is not in arriving, but in a constant state of arrival and being able to choose your path.
I love that.
And I'd love to hear anybody's story. I love all of the different walks of life, hearing where you came from and, what your ambitions are. I'm more than happy to help anyone that comes to me that says, hey, I feel the same way. How can you help me, or how can you show me, or how can you enable me to be able to do things? So,
what a great segue, Sean. How do people find you if they want to do that?
LinkedIn is probably one of the best ways.
Okay.
I'm highly active on there. I get on Twitter every once in a while, but I try to stay away from the trolling posts. I really just follow others and kind of live vicariously through them.
Sure.
I'm working on a blog to be able to share a lot of this information, and working on a new website as soon as my providers get their stuff together.
Sure. All right. Well, with that said, I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and thank you, Sean, for being on. We would love to hear your story. Leave some comments below. Tell us what's worked for you, what's not worked. Links, share, would be appreciative. Give us a thumbs up if you like it. It helps us know, helps the channel, so we know what to do, and we can interact with you. And with that, Sean, thank you for a beautiful Thursday morning conversation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
All right, sir. Have a good day.
You too.